Insider for the 24/7 Sports Network, editor for Pack Power 24/7. Cory joining us now. Thanks for the time today, Cory. How you doing today?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys having me on. We're doing well. It's we're dealing with the rare snow here. I'm sure you guys laugh at us every time that we have the type of snow and ice that we get, but it's a little different down here right now. So.
Yeah, no doubt. My old college roommate who grew up here in Syracuse, he lives in Cary, North Carolina, and he says that it's it's a different world down there. You guys aren't prepared for the snow. Stay safe. I know it's a different thing for you guys down there, so I hope everything's all right from that perspective. Let's talk some basketball. Will Wade, year one, high expectations going into NC State. What do you make of? I guess how would you evaluate? How would you assess year one under Will Wade?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult because, you go into the season and obviously the off-season talk, and Will Wade kind of did it to himself a little bit where you say, all right, we're going to come out, we're going to have a red reckoning, and, it's going to be hell for the rest of the ACC, all this different stuff, and, we're not taking any prisoners, whatever, type of thing that was said in the off-season. Then you lose, 4 games in non-conference, and that's not a great look. Obviously, you wanted to win a couple of those to be able to kind of sell to the fan base that you got yourself in position, and you are what you said you were. And obviously they would have liked to win a couple games in Maui. They would have loved to win the game at home against Kansas. But as you get into ACC play now, this team is 5-2 overall, and they've gotten to a point where at 14-6, you're kind of in a good spot in the ACC where, all right, you're still in the top half, you're in the top 5 of the ACC right now going into this matchup against Syracuse. So as much as you kind of missed the mark a little bit early on, you haven't really missed the mark in the ACC to this point. You win a road game against Clemson. And you put yourself in a good enough spot to be able to kind of be where you thought you would be, at least in ACC play to this point. So I think it's still on track, even despite some early, we'll say some early speed bumps to the season.
How about the play at Quadir Copeland? He's obviously a major storyline going into this game tonight because of his time at SU. It looks like he's having a pretty good year from afar based on what I've seen. He's averaging 14 a game, 6 assists, 4 straight games now in double figures. What do you make of his game, and how has he been received down there by the NC State fans?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Will Wade has allowed him to do is just have freedom within the system. Last year, they went through their trials and tribulations at McNeese, and, he talked about it. Will Wade talked about it, the fact that he, basically let him go for like 10 days. And, if you want to be back on this team, you're going to have to earn it. And he eventually did, and there's a reason why he wanted to transfer over to NC State along with Will Wade. And you're seeing it pay off this season where he's kind of said, hey, look, we're going to let you take the reins of the offense. They'd like for it to be, the usage rating for him and Darien Williams to be around 25, to have them both kind of playing in sync with each other, playing on and off the ball at times. But what we've seen so far is, again, him elevate his game as a scorer. You're seeing him elevate his game as a three-point shooter. He's not taking, he's not going to take 100 three-pointers this year, but he's making almost 50% of his three-pointers this season, which is a massive jump from last season where he finished with 16% of made three-pointers. He just wasn't asked to do it nearly as much. Will Wade talked about it yesterday. He went off to train with Phil Beckner in the offseason and work on his shots. But also he's just a willing passer, and he's somebody that the defenses kind of gravitate towards. And once they do, he's being able to dish it out to other guys and let them score around him. Paul McNeil has taken a big jump because of him. Darien Williams, who's seen him take a little bit of a jump because of him, and other players around him just be able to get better because of what he's done as a point guard and what he's done as a scorer as well.
You brought up the name Darien Williams. He was obviously a huge addition out of the portal from Texas Tech. Will Wade had that viral press conference defending him. How has he performed, especially of late, and what's the fan base think of him right now?
Yeah, I think the fan base is kind of up and down on Darien Williams. The fact that he hasn't produced as much as a scorer as people kind of expected. Going into the season, I think a lot of people expected to see what they got in the NCAA tournament. Texas Tech, 4 straight games where he had over 20 points. So you kind of expect, all right, this is going to be the guy that's going to take the ball in his hands, hit big shots, and he hasn't done that as much this season. But what you've had is, as Will Wade has talked about multiple times, when his usage rating is high, he makes winning plays. And, on the road so far this season over the last several games, he's been that guy. Now, the one, missing piece to that was what he did against Pitt, but a lot of that was because he was in foul trouble and he didn't, get an opportunity to really be a difference maker in that game. But, coming home, this is an opportunity for him to do it in front of the home fan base, something he hasn't done in quite a while. So we'll see ultimately what he does in this game. But, from a scoring standpoint, it really hasn't been there on a game-in and game-out basis. But with the ball in his hands, he's been somebody that's been able to make winning plays for NC State. And I think, from a playmaking standpoint, they really need him in this game against Syracuse, especially, given the fact that they have Freeman back and, what he can do from an offensive and defensive standpoint down low.
Back-to-back road wins for this team after that bad loss to Georgia Tech. NC State 4-0 on the road in league play, sandwiched around that one loss, which was a quad 3 loss to the Yellow Jackets. What happened in that game, and I guess, what has changed since then that allowed them to bounce back the way that they have?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that happened against UVA the game before at home, and obviously two completely different teams, but NC State got down early in both of those games and wasn't able to really claw their way back out of it. Against Georgia Tech, they were midway through, but then the offense fell apart again late. So they need the offense to be consistent throughout. And, it's an interesting matchup because, you go against a Syracuse team that ranks top 25 in the country defensively in limiting teams, at least in the first half. They're only allowing teams to score 30.7 points in the first half, which, I believe ranks 24th in the country going into this game. So this is an NC State team that really needs to be able to get out to a hot start. If Syracuse is able to limit them there, this is a game that Syracuse really has a chance in.
Curious to get your thoughts on Syracuse, just kind of from the outside looking in, what you've seen, from watching ACC basketball this season. What are your impressions of the Orange?
Yeah, this is a team that's been really up and down throughout the season. Obviously, the last 3 games going back to, really the last 2 weeks or so, they struggled as far as being able to consistently produce offensively and limit teams defensively. And, looking back at it, obviously I think we all kind of thought that once Donnie Freeman came back, this was going to be a completely different team. And I think what teams have done over the last few weeks is limit him, I say limit him, but, he's still getting his every once in a while. But, if you're able to keep him below 20 points, that's something that ACC, they're 3-4 in ACC play right now. When teams are limiting him offensively to less than 20 points, they've been able to win. So I think this is a chance for, if they're going to be able to kind of pull their way back out of this hole, it's going to have to be through Freeman and through, J.J. Starling being able to kind of produce on the offensive end. And then, guys around them kind of jumping on the wagon there. And we just haven't seen that as consistently for Syracuse over the last few weeks.
It kind of leads me into my next question, Corey. I was going to ask you, to kind of lay out a blueprint for how Syracuse gives itself a chance tonight to win. We all saw the line, double-digit point spread, and NC State a sizable favorite to win tonight. In your mind, what does Cuse need to do or maybe NC State not do for this to be a close game?
Yeah, again, I keep going back to it, but, getting off to a good start. For NC State, the issue for them over the last few weeks has been, particularly at home, when they don't get off to good starts. It's something that Syracuse has been able to do, but, for Syracuse, it's really kind of keeping your foot on the gas pedal as far as the offense is concerned. And it's something that, they've allowed teams to kind of get back into games and ultimately pull through. For NC State, it's something they've struggled with at home. Once the crowd kind of gets out of it and isn't, kind of sucked into the whole, oh, God, here we go again type of moment, they've, ultimately the team is kind of fed off that energy. So I think for Syracuse, it's getting off to a hot start. And for NC State, it's the same thing. They've got to be better defensively at home against Syracuse. It's something they struggle with against Georgia Tech. It's something they struggle with against UVA. But also, if you're Syracuse, one of the bigger things to me is trying to figure out a way to turn the ball over. If they're able to turn NC State over a couple times, that gets them out of their flow offensively. and it's something that Georgia Tech was really able to do last time out. NC State was able to kind of get it under control in the second half, but still weren't able to get back from it. So I think those are going to be the kind of two keys for Syracuse, getting off to a good start and forcing NC State into turnovers and getting the offense out of rhythm throughout this game.
Yeah, and Syracuse did that in the last game against Miami, forced 16 turnovers, but just could not capitalize at the other end and had a really tough time on the glass as well. Hurricanes dominated them on the glass, and they ended up losing by 9. All right, let's switch gears as long as we have you, Cory. Just talk a little bit of football. Schedules all released yesterday. The transfer portal is in full swing. What are your takeaways about this NC State football team going into 2026 here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people have kind of focused on what NC State brought in the portal, but I think it's more so about what they've been able to retain. I mean, obviously, C.J. Bailey, I think, has a chance to be a top 5, if not top 3 quarterback in the ACC next season if he continues his development the way that he has the past two seasons. Obviously, losing a guy like Hollywood Smothers, losing Terrell Anderson out of the transfer portal is a huge blow, but they were able to bring in other guys. Davion Gauss that comes over from UNC at the running back position. They were able to bring in a couple high upside wide receivers to go with guys like Teddy Hoffman and some others that they retained from last year. But it's going to be, again, about kind of C.J. Bailey putting this offense on his shoulders and being able to carry them and then finding ways to develop these guys into weapons and new faces they're bringing in. And then, on the defensive side of the football, I think they really have a chance to be good. It's just about, a lot of these guys they're bringing in. They brought in a transfer at the safety position in King Mack that comes over. They bring in a couple guys, especially Raul Aguirre that they just brought in from Miami that was, one of the rotational linebackers for them, but has a chance to be probably one of the best linebackers on NC State's roster next year. Comes over for his final season. So they brought in, and one last one too, Harvey Dyson that comes over from Tulane. I don't want to forget about him, a guy that ranked as one of the best pass rushing players in the entire country this past season for PFF. So there's a lot of potential here. It's about putting it together and finding success early because they start the very beginning of the season going, it's not a road game, but it is, you're playing over in Brazil against UVA to start the season. So you got to get it all together and get it together quickly because ACC play starts week 1 or week 0 before you even get to come back home and face off there. So getting Syracuse at home, I'm interested to see what Syracuse ultimately looks like because, last season nobody thought anything of them, and this season everybody was like, all right, maybe they'll surprise some people, and then ultimately didn't. So the Syracuse team is going to be an interesting one because they do face them later in the season at home. So I'm interested to see ultimately what the rest of the ACC looks like once we get to that point of the season. Yeah,
that Syracuse NC State game was the one that was added, right, by the conference after they decided to go to 9 league games, and that'll be a November 14th game down there in Raleigh. Cory, as always, appreciate the time. Hopefully we can talk again in November and talk some Cuse NC State football. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. I appreciate it, guys.
All right.